Now, when I first heard that Cannondale had dropped a new Synapse into the office, I thought, oh great, they've just integrated the cables and made some noises about aero. But this bike is far more interesting. The first thing to note is that this is not an e-bike, though I wish e-bike batteries were this small and compact. No, this neatly integrated battery provides power to the front and rear lights, along with running the Garmin Varia Radar system. The lights have been designed with Lezyne, and the battery pack is made by Garmin, and having a system that works off one battery means that there is just one thing to charge. It is removable, or you can plug it in while it's still on the bike. The lights themselves are 350 lumens for the front and then an 85 lumen rear. The lights can be set to automatically turn on in low light. You can have the rear light react to decelerations, effectively forming a brake light. It can be set to react to radar targets to become more visible as cars approach. But that said, the EU legal spec that we have here means that we can't show you the full set of these features, unfortunately. But that isn't the system's party trick, oh no. To allow you to just walk up to your bike and go, there is a wheel sensor on the front hub that, when it senses wheel movement, fires up the lights without you needing to fiddle around behind the seat post when you forget to turn on your light before setting off. If that isn't smart enough for you, then you can simply walk up to the bike with the Cannondale app running and the bike will wake up the lights. Another bonus of having a system that actually talks to a central battery is that this can be linked up to the Cannondale app. From there, you can control what settings the lights come onto when you start riding. So if you're riding in daylight hours mostly, like I generally do, then the front and rear can be set to flashing, or to save battery, you can simply turn the front light off. With the wheel sensor tracking mileage, you'll also be getting a running total of mileage that your bike has done and its components have done also. There are drop downs for service intervals, which might make it a bit easier to know when you need to take your bike in for a checkup. Cannondale says that the battery takes 3 hours to charge from flat. They say it will do 150 days on standby mode, and they say that you'll be getting a minimum of 2 hours 45 minutes. That's with the lights on full power. What Cannondale says that it is intending to do with this new tech is to simplify the day-to-day experience of owning the bike. And when I spoke to them, they made the comparison to modern day cars where like the lights just come on automatically. It is a simple safety feature, and I'd expect the fact that you've only got one battery to keep topped up to be relatively useful. Away from the electronics, there are more practical changes that have been made. Cannondale has listened to customers and moved to a threaded BSA bottom bracket. As the Synapse is a bike that we tend to see being ridden through all the weathers, that's a very sensible move, and Cannondale has also gone to a 27.2mm seat post, making upgrades easier. This is something that Cannondale says that it had to do. They dropped the seat stays, and had they stuck with the 25.4mm seat post of old, they say that the rear end would have been just a bit too flexy. Speaking of those seat stays, as you can see, they have been dropped. That leaves just the CAD Optimo and the CAD X bikes as the only non-drop seat stay bikes in the Cannondale range, and that does make me a little bit sad. I loved the aesthetic of the horizontal top tube that flowed into the seat stays on my old Super 6, so it is a shame to see them gone from the Synapse too. The reason for the move, Cannondale says, is a combination of aero gains and also needing to add a bit of comfort in at the rear end to offset the move to the 27.2 seat post. Another feature that you'll find on the new Synapse is an extension to the mounting options. A top tube mount and a down tube mount mean that a top tube bag can be deployed for extra snack storage, win, and either an extra bottle if you're going super long, or your ride spares can be stored down low at the bottom bracket. Cannondale obviously saw that we all like to load our bikes rather than our pockets, and it's nice not to have to use our bag with a strap around the steerer tube and top tube. And finally, before I get to some initial ride impressions, there is some fancy reflective paint to show you. It's another nod to visibility, and I'd say that Cannondale has done quite a nice job of things. In terms of how this thing rides, I've been out for one ride. I'm afraid. I tried to tick off all of the types of road that you'd use a Synapse for, so some hills, back lanes, B roads, that kind of thing. My initial impression is of a ride that Synapse fans will be familiar with. Cannondale hasn't changed the geometry from the previous model, so you're still getting a bike that is capable of a sporty position, but it certainly isn't as aggressive as a full-on road racer. Personally, I like that because more of the Synapse's target market are going to be able to find a comfortable position without having to resort to using a huge stack of spacers, and the absence of loads of spacers will keep the handling close to what Cannondale intended. They have, however, added some subtle aero touches to the tube shapes, while saying that the frame has been tuned for extra compliance. Both of those claims will be thoroughly tested out by Stu, who is going to do the full review of this bike, so look out for his review to see if they managed it. That'll be coming up on the site soon. I wouldn't say that this is an overly relaxed bike, and with my front end tucked down quite low on flat stretches, it was nice to feel that the bike was holding on to speed quite easily. These slight aero touches that Cannondale has given the tube shapes could be helping here, but ultimately I think the majority of aero drag comes from the rider, so being able to tuck low at the front is quite important. As with the Synapses of the past, the bike does a very good job of isolating the rider from the general buzz of poorly surfaced roads. It won't dull shocks from larger imperfections, but it does seem to work well to not leave you feeling beaten up over the course of a ride. Now, it was only a short ride, but the changes that Cannondale have made don't seem to have taken away from what we loved about the outgoing Synapse. Now, the build that we have here comes with a Shimano Ultegra R8020 group set. So that means you've got hydraulic brakes and mechanical shifting. The rotors are 160mm as standard on this 56cm model, which means that very little effort is required to slow yourself down. There's a lovely, dependable familiarity of mechanical shifting, and I'd say that Cannondale has been entirely sensible with the gearing choices, running a compact 50-34 tooth chain set with an 11 to 34 tooth cassette. That's a very nice gear to have when the hill gets steep. The cost for this model is $4,000. Electronic shifting starts at 5.8 with Ultegra Di2. There is a GRX Di2 build at $6,750, and the range topper comes with Dura-Race at $9,000. That's a Di2 model. At the more sensible end, the Shimano 105 bike is $3,200 and the Tiagra bike is $2,400. Carbon wheels start with the GRX Di2 build, and those top price bikes also get the fancy hologram integrated carbon bar and stem. Right, with that, it's time for me to hand the bike over to Stu for the full review. If there is anything that you'd like him to cover in his review, let us know down in the comments below, and we will do our best to answer them. Before you go, remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.